Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the next installment of our series of webinars. Once again, my name is Andy Radelet, and I am the Senior Admissions Advisor with CRCC Asia, based out of our offices here in Philadelphia. For those watching right now, hello to all of you. Please do feel free to ask some questions in the chat. I'd be happy to answer them while we're live right here. For those watching at a later date, hello to you as well. If you have any other questions, please feel to comment in the comment section. We'll see them, or at the end of this, you can fast forward to the end of this video. There will be an email address for you to answer any inquiries and kind of move forward with that. On to the main event. During this installment, I will be discussing a little bit more about our internship programs, the logistics of what it really consists of, really what you can expect on the ground, and this time with a real focus in on our BEIJING internship program. So I'll kind of discuss, the benefits to doing an internship program through CRCC Asia, of course, and also touch upon the benefits as to why you should pick BEIJING as a place to go. Not necessarily specific to China, but just why BEIJING really stands out as a real globalized city. And to be honest, with extreme bias, that is my personal favorite city. Out of all, in the world, really, a lot of experience there, and I'm happy to kind of share that and discuss that further through this call or through this video today. So if you just want to give me 1 second here, I'm going to share my screen with y'all. Wonderful. Well, let's get started here. In BEIJING, this picture is actually taken from inside the Forbidden City, which is where, of course, the emperor lived. And this is just a perfect representation of BEIJING and really what the benefits that they have, because it really is a true mix between the past of China and really the present as well as the future as well. It's really a perfect mix and such a fascinating place to be. So to get started again, for those who tuned into my previous webinar focused on Shanghai, we're going to be discussing a lot of the same principles as well, but I have added even a few more reasons as to why you all or everybody I think should be interning abroad, and why specific to CRCC Asia as well. Of course, we do facilitate internship programs across several locations, not just BEIJING or in China. And really in each location, the programs essentially mirror each other. Of course, we facilitate those internships across our 14 sectors, which we'll touch on again a little bit later onto this call if you guys want a quick refresher. And there's also program management staff on the ground, and we really help you from the pre-departure stage all the way up until the program when you're on the ground and actually interning. So we're with you really every step of the way. One of the benefits, I think, to interning in really any location, of course, China in particular, through this specific webinar, is really the opportunity to learn a different language. For those of you that can only speak English, that's perfectly fine. Again, that's what our job is there to do, and kind of still give you that bridge or be that liaison for you guys to have that exposure to a place like China, whether it be China, Japan, Vietnam, Korea. We're giving you that opportunity to really get into that culture. But while you're over there, it's also great to maybe learn a few words, learn a few sentences, learn a few introductory phrases that'll help you, of course, communicate on the ground, whether it be with coworkers, whether it be with taxi drivers or waiters on the ground. That's what we're really there to help you out with that. So wonderful. To kind of move on here, this will broaden your country-specific knowledge, or in this case, specifically China. It will give you the opportunity to really get immersed in a culture, in a country that you see so many times, whether it be in the headlines, that is so immersed in the global economy. So many people, especially over the last few decades, notice China as that's where everything's made, right? That's where all the clothing is made. That's where all these electronics are made, and really so many just products that people own in China were made in the Western world were made in China. So that's where a lot of people, but it's so much more than that, especially over the past few decades when China's economy has really started to skyrocket and get more and more influential without the world. It'll give you kind of exposure to that, but also that culture and learning how to communicate in the business world, learning how to make connections, and really learning the ins and outs of the culture, so you can really get intertwined, and hopefully that will definitely benefit you as you kind of move on for your career. Just kind of touch upon, this is something, if you guys remember from my last webinar with Shanghai, is developing a global network. And in my personal opinion, this is one of the most beneficial things that CRCC Asia can provide for you guys are going to China in general. A lot of times with general study abroad, or if you're going to visit a country just as a tourist, you don't really, you just kind of scratch the surface. In terms of interning abroad, you really take it one step further, where you're actually immersed, not just in the culture, but literally in an office environment, right? So you're going to have coworkers, you're going to have a supervisor that you guys are all going to be working together towards that common goal. And that's something that you really can't get through another study abroad program, or by, going to China just to visit the Great Wall, for a week or whatever it might be. This is such an influential experience, and relationships are key to everything. In China, there's actually a phrase called guanxi, which essentially means connections. And that's super important, no matter whether you're in the Western world or China, really, anywhere in the world. Connections do mean a lot, but in China, it's everything. And how people, it's really all about who how you interact with each other, and really your face. So developing that guanxi is really influential. And through CRCC Asia, again, we really teach you how to do that, provide those various events for you guys, including our business seminars, which we'll touch on a little bit later, but really getting you involved in that culture, meeting people, and making the most out of your time out in Beijing. So now specifically a little bit more into Beijing, and why I personally think that a lot of people, if you're interested in going to China, why Beijing is probably one of the best spots for you. There's so many in terms of tourist attractions. There's so many reasons to go. As you can see on this slide right here, you can see the Bird's Nest, which is part of Olympic Village, home of the 2008 Summer Olympics. What a lot of people think also opened up to the world, and really kind of exposed what China has been working on for the last several decades, and kind of getting up, taking the forefront on the world stage from an economic and political standpoint. It is, of course, the cultural capital of China, as well as the political capital. There's a very, very, very long series of histories there. Of course, the Forbidden City, which you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, is really the palace of where the emperor lived for hundreds of years. And that's literally right in the middle, geographically speaking, of Beijing. And really the city kind of expands from there. And in the middle is the Forbidden City. Right next to it is, of course, Tiananmen Square. And again, the city essentially makes its way out in rings and is very centrally, and really from the middle, which is the Forbidden City. Just switching over to the right, you can still, of course, see the Great Wall. Obviously, the Great Wall is thousands and thousands of miles long. A lot of people actually don't know that it's not all one wall, a lot of different separate parts. But actually, just north of Beijing, the closest part of the Great Wall is actually only about 35, 45 minutes outside of Beijing. But there's, if that's one of your check off the bucket list things, Beijing is a perfect spot for you. There's even opportunities for us to facilitate camping trips up there if that's something you'd like to do, and where you can literally watch the sunset and the sunrise the following morning while sleeping literally on the Great Wall. It's something I've done myself, and absolutely one of the best 12 hours I've had in my life, to say the least. Of course, it is the center of the government. That's where everything, it's where Xi Jinping lives and Li Keqiang, a lot of these influential figures, very similar to that of Washington, D.C. here in the States, or London in the U.K. It's very similar to that. Another thing as well that a lot of people may not know, for those Mandarin learners, or for those taking either majoring in Mandarin or taking classes before, what stands out about Beijing rather than Shanghai is really in Western universities, the main form of Chinese that's spoken, main form of Mandarin, is actually the Beijing Hua. So you're actually learning Chinese is how it's pronounced in Beijing. Now there's all these different regions of China that very similar to the United States and the UK, where everyone has their own way of speaking, their own accents. Beijing is really what we're taught here in the States in terms of, vocabulary and pronunciation. For example, again, this is for my language learners out there, to say Idian or EDR, that's the Beijing way of saying it, kind of an R at the end. So that's another way. Again, it is Mandarin. There's not too much Cantonese in Beijing, if at all. So that's one thing that really separates Beijing. If you really want to improve your Mandarin, again, Beijing is really the best spot for that. There's also a lot of different sector placements. One of the biggest cities in the world, one of the biggest economies in the world. There's placements with, we can really host just about all of our 14 sectors in Beijing. There's a lot of different placements. For, of course, obvious reasons, the business sector is, of course, very, very influential. Beijing is absolutely an alpha city, to right up there with Shanghai and Guangzhou in terms of China. So there's a lot of business, a lot of international businesses there. There's also a lot of legal firms and a lot of law firms that we work with. And so if you're looking for a internship within that legal sector, Beijing is absolutely one of the best spots for you. So again, there's a lot of opportunities there. There's also, and within our NGOs and charity sector, there's also a lot of opportunities within embassies or within international organizations, because of course the proximity to the government and abiding by those regulations and things like that. So there's a lot we can look into there. And of course, as I mentioned, there's a lot of tourist spots. So it's a very, very strong sector for tourism and hospitality as well. Work in the capital, I kind of touched on this a little bit in my previous slide. It's such a unique opportunity to go to a capital of a place like China and learn the ins and outs that way. A lot of the companies abide very closely to what the government is saying. It gives you an opportunity to kind of learn the local regulations, whether it be in the legal system, whether it be in the international relations system, or just the general business laws. Beijing is, of course, one of the best for that, not to mention the nearby historical sites of the Great Wall, of Tiananmen Square, of Forbidden City, Summer Palace, the list goes on and on. One thing that a lot of people don't realize about Beijing is it is actually one of the biggest tech hubs or technology hubs in the world. A lot of people refer to Shenzhen as the Silicon Valley of China, and in doing that, they're completely correct. Shenzhen is absolutely that, but even different, there's even a pocket of Beijing, as well as a lot of the big cities in China, but there's specifically Beijing, there's a portion of the city up in the north west, right near Tsinghua University or Beidao, which is Peking University. There's a portion of the city called Zhongguancun, which is actually really the tech hub. It's home to really hundreds of different incubators and tech companies that are always looking, they're trying to be that next startup, that next Tencent in China, and really trying to build up. There's a lot of investment even being given by the government, and with all those educational institutions around, really world renowned, not just in China. So there's a lot of different, really huge, quite a big tech hub. And what a unicorn is here's a perfect slide. So it's actually a privately held company valued at over $1 billion US. So there's a lot of different unicorns in China, like Tencent was actually referred to as a unicorn at one point, and there's so many. And really that rise is, something that really is focusing in on China, and China's growth in these unicorns is really nothing short of a miracle. That's why it's called the economic miracle. What's happened the last few decades. Alibaba, of course, backs several. That huge conglomerate, and of course, Tencent owns about 28 as well. So there's a lot of opportunities there, kind of getting exposure to that environment. And if you're a finance major, maybe looking into investment firms that are really focusing in on that, because primarily within the technology sector, a lot of people agree that that's the future right there. And whether it be society, the impacts they have there, there's there's really not many better places on earth rather than Beijing for learning about unicorns, learning about that technology sector. Again, this is just a graph to show, as you can see on the graph right there, just the skyrocket of the international patent applications that you've seen there for these entrepreneurs. It's really, China as a whole is one big entrepreneurial hub. Shenzhen, of course, has its, is that Silicon Valley, but Beijing is right up there with it, as you can see on that graph to the right there. Back on the kind of the tourist side of things, you will have the opportunity, of course, to check out the Great Wall if you're from China. Usually about there's different parts of it, of course, but usually about 45 minutes to even an hour and a half outside of the city, depending on how remote you want to get. There's several different tourist organizations that can facilitate trips out there. One, of course, is our partner company called the Dragon Trip, where during your program in Beijing, you are able to, we can facilitate that night tour of the Great Wall, where you actually camp on it for one night on really unrestored section, very not too touristy at all. And it kind of gives you that authentic taste. But there's even opportunities, if you can go quite far out, if you're okay with it being quite packed, and that you can still go on the Great Wall. And again, our program staff on the ground is really happy to help you out with that and help you facilitate those trips while you're out there. See the Olympics, as I kind of touched on at the beginning of this webinar, the Olympics, this was home to the 2008 Summer Olympics. So you can see the bird's nest in the background, but there's also a wide variety of different things that you can see there. It's just in the north of the city, so you can still go in there, check out, see where Michael Phelps broke the record for the amount of medals, individual medals in any Olympics at the Water Cube, which is actually right near where this picture was taken, just to the different side. And actually, if you don't know, this is where Beijing will be hosting the 2022 Winter Olympics. So we'll be in the spotlight once again, and a lot of the events will be outside, more so in the mountains and things like that. But there still will be some events in the city of Beijing, and kind of that preparation for it is definitely something that very unique opportunity as well. Now, one of my favorite parts about Beijing is the various hutongs, and I've touched on a couple times now. Really, what makes Beijing so unique is the future, the present, and the past. And the hutongs are such a great representation of that. Now, to start things off, what is a hutong? They're essentially like the winding little neighborhoods of old Beijing, where a lot of people live. They're usually one, maybe a maximum 2 stories. And over the past several years, the government has really invested a lot of money into making them a little bit more touristy. There's still some, parts of the city that are hutongs, I should say. There are, many people still live in. But for right now, you can just walk down a hutong. It really gives you that feel of old time Beijing. But a lot of the hutongs have been turned into different pubs or restaurants, and that really kind of give you that unique vibe. You can literally spend an entire day just walking through the hutongs. You never know what you're going to find. It's fascinating and one of my favorite things to do out there. Now to kind of focus more on the internship program, for those again that watched my Shanghai webinar, we'll kind of be going over a little bit of the similar details throughout this. Of course, through our program, you are guaranteed an internship in one of your 3 sector choices. And you get a first choice, a second choice, and a third choice. So, through those, you will be exposed to those types of, that's how our business development team when upon the time of your placement process. That's how we begin facilitating and collaborating with those companies on your behalf. So again, you're guaranteed an internship with an English speaking supervisor. The visa processing fees are all covered. We do, provide you with the support for those of you coming from North America. You'll be working with me directly. I'll provide you all those instructions that you need, your official invitation letter to China. Usually about 2 to 2.5 months prior to your start date, we like to begin that process to just kind of get it out of the way and kind of get you that visa as soon as possible. Again, that's all included. The accommodation is also completely included as well. It will be a private room, a private bedroom, and then you share a kitchen and a living room with 1, maybe 2 other interns that are on the same program as you. Airport pickup, again, we will be tracking your flight. Please arrive on your start date. When you apply to the program, talk with the admissions advisor, it'll be very clear what your start date is. That's the day you arrive in Beijing, or whether it be Shanghai or any one of our programs, that's the day we ask you to arrive. And we will be there, we will be waiting for you at the airport to pick you up and to bring you back to your accommodation that day. The next day will be in the induction day. Really kind of an orientation of sorts, and really getting you acclimated to China, to living there for an extended period of time. We provide you with a SIM card for your phone, as well as a Metro card to utilize public transportation. We teach you how to use the subway, how to use the bus, and really go one by one with you guys, teaching you how to get your commute down. Again, most of you guys will be taking the subway each day. Some of you guys may be able to take the bus. Regardless, we'll make sure you know what you're doing. But on that first day, we will be dropping you off at your host company after the weekend. So that first Monday, that's your first day of the internship. We drive you there, get that out of the way. But throughout the rest of the program, you will be commuting to and from work each day on your own. And your supervisor as well will help you out in terms of, figuring out the quickest route or the cheapest route, whatever it might be. We're there to help, and your supervisor will be there as well. Then throughout the program, we do offer various social and cultural events in Beijing. This can be anything like dumpling making to karaoke parties. We'll also maybe flow in like a tour of the Hutongs or something like that. Giving you that opportunity to really get immersed in that culture. If you guys want to go to the Great Wall or go to the Tiananmen Square, kind of explore the Summer Palace even during the weekends, that's perfectly fine. These events are really just, included in the program. Please feel free to come along, not mandatory at all. We also offer business seminars. These are very similar to networking events where we bring in business leaders, CEOs, entrepreneurs who've been very successful in a place like Beijing. Some may be Chinese nationals, some might be expats from the US or the UK even, or Australia primarily, who have moved to China, kind of developed their own entrepreneurial enterprise, or even kind of joined or got a job out there, whatever it might be. Some even might be CRCC Asia alumni that we bring back who have gone on to be very successful. But again, we bring them in, usually 4 or 5 or so. They'll give you guys a quick lecture about who they are, what they do, what organization or company they work for, maybe a little fun facts about China, and kind of preparing you, what it's like to do business in China. And then we really open it up. They really like meeting you guys, and that gives you another opportunity to really expand your network and really get to know people in Beijing. And then lastly, of course, we have that 24-hour support and guidance. So, throughout that, every day of the week, if you have any question, we're literally one message away on WeChat, one call away. We're always there to help for the entirety of your program. This is just a quick picture of the airport pickup in actually the Beijing airport. So about 2 weeks prior to your arrival day in Beijing, we will our staff in Beijing will send you an email with really all the information you need. In most cases, we will meet at this Starbucks. Essentially, this is right when you get out of baggage claim. You'll see us with our CRCC Asia t-shirts and our flag. We'll make sure that you can't miss us. We've done this for several years, several different programs for thousands of interns. We know how to spot you guys, and we make sure it's easier for you guys to spot us too. Again, we'll know exactly when your flight's coming. We'll be ready. We'll be prepared to pick you up and get you on the accommodation and let the adventure begin. And this is just an overview of the accommodation. Very similar to all our other locations that I mentioned a couple times. You have your own private room, private area. Then you share like a kitchen, as you can see right here, in a living area with one or two other interns that are on the same program as you. For the most part, the interns will live in the same accommodation. Sometimes if numbers get a bit too high, we have a lot of interns at the ground at once, we may need to open up one more accommodation, but you will have that sense of community. You'll be able to make friends and kind of have that support in terms of exploring Beijing. The vast majority of you guys, this will be your first time in that country, in China. So, get to know each other. We have a lot of events for you guys to, get exposed to that sort of thing. And it's really an opportunity to make some lifelong friends. And of course, maybe professional connections down the road. It's, always great to keep in touch as well. Just an example of the induction day. This is as a reminder, the day after you arrive, usually always on that Friday, where we kind of ease you in. We really kind of want to make it fun for you guys. We just kind of touch on everything you need to know and really get you prepared. The meals are included on this day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which is nice. So it is a full day. It is a long day, but we make things fun. We really want you guys to be ready for this program and for living in Beijing for an extended period of time. First day company drop off. As I mentioned, you do have that initial weekend to yourself. On that Saturday, you will have Mandarin classes that are you probably 1.5 to 2 hours or so, just kind of giving that elementary, that beginner Mandarin skills, kind of getting you prepared. You will have some rest time on, later that day and Sunday to really do as you please, get over that jet lag. And then of course, as I mentioned, that following Monday will be the first day of the internship. And on that first day, we actually do drive you to the company, get you situated, get you acclimated at your internship. And then, as I mentioned, moving forward, you will be commuting to and from work each day. Community outreach, again, this is just an opportunity for you to get really intertwined with the community, whether it be visiting an orphanage, seeing all the little kids that were there, or really kind of getting involved. These are usually once a month. A lot of the interns really, really enjoy it, and really gives you that thing. You're really giving back and really seeing what a lot of China is like as well. Kind of mentioned this a little bit before, but again, all the events and those networking events, the social events are included, the 24-hour emergency support. And then our program management staff will also have weekly drop-in sessions with you guys, just kind of check in, kind of very similar to office hours, where on like a Monday night or Friday night, we'll be in the lobby of your accommodation or maybe at a nearby Starbucks. Please feel free to drop by if you'd like to talk about anything. We're always there for you. Come by and we'll discuss some learning objectives or talk about the week, whatever it might be. This is your opportunity to come in, talk to us about anything, and again, we're always there to help. Just a quick overview of the application process. Again, if you are interested, if you are watching this video and are thinking about applying, do wait just a minute or so, because I have a surprise for you in just a few minutes. But if you are interested in applying, please go to our website, crccasia.com. After you get there, you'll see a big red box at the upper right-hand side of the screen that says apply. The application only takes maybe a minute or so to complete. And again, that's just asking for your contact information as well as your sector choices. If you do have a resume, please do upload it just so we can have a look. And then after you submit it, immediately after you submit the application, you will be forwarded to a different page where you can schedule your advising session phone call. This is with an admissions advisor, and this just takes maybe 20, 30 minutes. We'll call you at a time whenever you're free. Again, you can click whatever day or whatever time you are available. We give you a call then, and we discuss, your goals, your experiences, really what you're looking to get out of this really internship program, and, really give up. And so this is your opportunity to give us an idea of what type of internship you're looking to have. We will then get back to you with your admissions decision a day or two later. If you are placed, we do ask you to submit an acceptance fee and kind of our payment process for there before we begin the placement process and getting you confirmed with the company. Again, the longer we have to really facilitate a placement for you, the better. Really gives our staff to look into as many opportunities as possible. We really like to get you confirmed with a company 3 to 5, 6 or so weeks before your start date. So again, do be patient with us. We're working very, very hard. Sometimes you guys can get placed in as little as less than a week. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer than that. As I mentioned before, you guys are 100% guaranteed an internship. But through this process, it's a real good idea to be checking your email quite frequently, because if a company does show interest in you and may want to bring you on, 9 times out of 10 they will want to interview you. So either myself or a staff member, a colleague of mine out in Beijing, will be in touch with you, telling you what company is interested, a very general job description, and asking for your availability as well, and kind of moving forward with that process. This is just an idea of the sectors. Again, there are 14 different sectors. They are very broad, and they cover just about every field of study as well. Again, this is the reason for the advising session, is to dig a little bit deeper into the specifics, because we want to do our best and facilitate the internship that you're looking for. Our job as admissions advisors is to be as transparent as possible with you. We want you to succeed. We want to get you that internship, but we want to learn a little bit more about you as well and the specifics. If you are open to a lot of opportunities, that's wonderful. There's a lot we can look into at a place like China, and we'll also give you some ideas as well, according to your resume, according to your interests. So it's very, an opportunity to learn more about you and to learn more about the program as well. These are the top 3 sectors in Beijing. Just quick, before we get started here, it's absolutely not limited to these 3 sectors, really at all. Business, of course, this could be anything, helping out the business operations. I like to call this a very hybrid role. You get exposure to several different aspects of the business, helping out with strategy, helping out with business development. There's a lot we can go with this, and it really depends on the industry you want to look into. Maybe it's in the sports industry or the tech industry, or the fashion industry, whatever it might be. There's a lot of those hybrid roles that we can look into, very closely related to the marketing, PR, and advertising role. If you really want to work in a PR agency or advertising agency, we can look into that. If you really want to focus in on, want to do marketing for a tech company, if one of your goals down the road is to, do marketing with Apple or Google, it's great to get start working in a startup, especially in a place like China. Especially as the Chinese market becomes, it already is one of the biggest in the world, but learning how to market a company or a product to the Chinese market is a skill that is really on the rise in terms of for jobs, and getting that exposure through an internship is, invaluable. So there's absolutely huge market there. Then I mentioned this before as well, the NGOs and nonprofit sector, those are quite broad, whether it is working with a charity that's focused on sustainability or the environment. There's also opportunities with, working with migrants or families like that. There's also potential opportunities with embassies in Beijing. As Beijing is the capital, so that's where all the embassies are. We can look in there if you're, one of those international relations students. There's a lot of opportunities that we can look into. But again, this is what we dig a little bit deeper to with the admissions advisor, kind of looking into the specifics during the initial admissions call. These are a few different examples of placements. Neotechnology is actually a scooter company. you've probably seen those mopeds, whether around college campuses and things like that. These are 100% electric. You actually see them. They are quite known around Europe and China as well. They have not penetrated the American market, but there's opportunities with engineering there, but also primarily marketing and just general business operations. For her and for him is actually a fashion company where you really get exposure to the marketing side of things. Again, using seeing the difference between marketing to a Western audience compared to that of a Chinese audience. A really great opportunity there. So there's a lot of different opportunities there, just a few examples. So the payment process, if this is something you'd like to do and really you want to move forward to it, you have received your offer letter, you've already interviewed, and you want to move forward, we do ask you to submit a $500 acceptance fee, which is essentially taken right off the top of your program tuition. And that'll just confirm your place on the program and secure your spot, ultimately guaranteeing you an internship. We do ask you to pay a first installment payment, which is essentially just 50% of the total remaining balance. Once that is submitted, we will immediately begin collaborating with companies on your behalf. And then you don't need to pay that final installment or that second installment, basically covering the remainder of your program tuition until after you are confirmed with a company. I did touch on this, but just to kind of recap everything, an internship program is so much more than just an internship. If you want to go out to Beijing and, apply to several companies out there, absolutely. If that's something you'd like to do, but then go for it. There's a lot of things that you need to, cover. Again, the CRCC Asia, or the benefits of a provider. We find the living accommodations, of course, in a very safe part of the city, and usually quite 4 or 5 star servicing, again, fully furnished and things like that. You have that sense of community, and we're really there to support you from the second you submit an application till the day you leave Beijing. We're there to support you. That's what we're there to do. The internship is, of course, a major part of it, but it is so much more. There's events, and it's really an experience more than anything else. You will have that internship on your resume, which of course a lot of people really like from a professional standpoint, but it's also going to be experience that you'll never forget, that will absolutely stick with you for the remainder of your life.